Hey everyone, this is Gabe Gerwin here with Gaming Angel Gabriel. I'm joined today by Dean Thompson. You're watching Gaming Angel Gabriel, and this is the What We Saw Game of the Year Awards for 2012. Now, unlike some other sites that I think put their awards up a little bit too early, this is actually, you'll notice, going up on the very last day of 2012. December 31st. I didn't do that on purpose, actually. I just realized that. But we have a lot of different awards to cover. I had some friends on Facebook and stuff send me in some suggestions and send me in some of their input. So we have, I think, 17 awards here. You can count them, obviously, at your leisure. I want to mention, too, to go check out Vinny Corleone 62. That's Dean's new channel where he's been doing Escape to Gaming, a great show about retrospectives and his impressions about some of his current favorite games. So let's start off on a bit of a low note. I'm doing this in the reverse order, actually, that I wrote these categories. So the first, there's only three nominees for this one, but it's biggest disappointment of 2012. These three games were all huge, I think, huge expectations for them, especially the first two. And the third one, I think, was just a lot worse than people anticipated. Those games are Resident Evil 6, developed and published by Capcom. Medal of Honor Warfighter, developed by Danger Close and published by Electronic Arts, and Epic Mickey 2, which was, of course, published, it was a Disney game, obviously, that had some big names behind it, so I think that was a little disappointed. And I'm referring to The Power of Two, and not The Power of Illusion, which is the 3DS game, which also got mixed reception. So, I think we'll talk about these a little bit. With Resident Evil 6, I think, part of the thing was there were 3 Resident Evil games released in 2012. The first one was released, I believe, in February, and that was Resident Evil Revelations, a 3DS game, one of the best games on the 3DS still. First game to use the Circle Pad Pro device, which I needed as a lefty. It really helped me out with Kid Icarus Uprising. But then Operation Raccoon City came out, developed by a pretty low-level publisher who, and that game just didn't get very much support or praise at all. And I think a lot of people thought, including me, that Resident Evil 6 was going to be this big, amazing Resident Evil experience. It looked like it was going back to its horror roots a little bit. And it just didn't do that. It wasn't good as an action game. It wasn't good as a horror game. Namely, it wasn't scary. The plot was disjointed. And it was a big disappointment. I'd say bigger than Operation Raccoon City, which most people consider to be a slightly worse game because our expectations for this were so high. Now, Medal of Honor Warfighter is a little bit different. I guess, for me, I was really excited about this only after seeing the E3 demo that they showed. When they showed storming the beaches, all of that stuff, I got very, very excited for Medal of Honor Warfighter. The graphics looked amazing, utilizing the Frostbite 2 engine. But then, when I actually started playing it, and this is actually a game Dean gave me, and it was fun, but something didn't quite feel right. It was kind of buggy, and the story was very derivative. The level design was good, but it was disappointing overall. I think a lot of people expected it to be a step up from 2010's Medal of Honor reboot, but it didn't really deliver on that. And then the third game, Epic Mickey 2, I think similarly, the first Epic Mickey released on the Wii was kind of this homage, I guess, to both a game like Super Mario Sunshine, which you can see Derek on CGR mentioned this, and also this grand Disney tale with a kind of, not obscure, obviously Disney's super popular, but as a video game character, there haven't been many huge games with Mickey Mouse. Well, Epic Mickey was mixed. This one, the reception was almost exactly the same. None of the technical issues seemed to be resolved. So obviously there's a lot of negativity coming out there, but the biggest disappointment for what we saw 2012 is Resident Evil 6. Because,
yeah, I'd have to agree on that one. And it's only because I have so many friends that just are absolutely in love, head over heels with the franchise. And even though they're kind of fighting it, they don't want to really show as huge fans that they're really let down. Some of them are even kind of almost holding it up like it actually is a great game. But I think overall it's just a huge letdown. Everything I've seen on it, and I've really taken the time to watch like an hour and 20 minutes of actual playthroughs. I mean, straight through of it. It looks god awful, but that's my own opinion on it. So, and I love the first two. but I haven't played 4 and 5 and a lot of the newer ones.
And as someone, I can say I was not an old Resident Evil fan just because I was younger then and it wasn't really, my thing. Resident Evil 4, I hadn't played it until this year when I played it in this kid's dorm room. And then Resident Evil 5 was actually my first Resident Evil game. And of course, a lot of people think that game went down this more action-y route, and it certainly did. It wasn't scary, really, except that it was creepy near the end, and some stuff was kind of frightening. But overall, it was not a scary game. But as an action game, it was very good. So Resident Evil 5, while it changed a lot, was still a good game. Resident Evil 6, it fails on both of those fronts, on the scary segments with Leon, on the third-person shooter segments that Chris has, and then this weird thing with Jake. So, yeah, Resident Evil 6 is our biggest disappointment of the year. Let us know in the comments what your biggest disappointment was, even if it's not one of these three.
It's obviously a 10-hour QuickTime event, basically.
Yeah, I mean, they had a lot of QuickTime events, and they got some things cool. I mean, I hear the co-op is fun and all that stuff, and it's cool that they're trying new things, but at the same time, I think they're going in two different wrong directions. They picked like all of the worst parts of old Resident Evil games, which was they could get kind of boring at times just from if you weren't feeling that tension and there just wasn't much happening, and then they really made a pretty crappy third-person shooter segment for it with bad AI. So our next category is a big one, and these are all big studios we're mentioning. This is Studio of the Year for 2012. Now, these aren't necessarily all the very best games released. That's not what this is about. It's more about proving themselves as a studio and really putting yourselves on the radar or cementing your place in the gaming industry. So, Studio of the Year, the nominees are 343 Industries for Halo 4, Ubisoft Montreal for Assassin's Creed 3 and for Far Cry 3, Arcane Studios for Dishonored, Vigil Games for Darksiders 2, and Telltale Games for The Walking Dead. And all of these games won tons of awards. Darksiders 2 didn't win as many as I thought maybe it should, because I love that game to death. But the winner here is Ubisoft Montreal. And the reason for that is because they have two AAA titles, which were released
on that one.
within a month of each other. Assassin's Creed 3, maybe a slight letdown. To me, it was a little bit disappointing, but it's still a very good game. And Far Cry 3, which I think just blew everyone away with how great it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, no hard feelings to any of these other studios. Arcane, they had made some games before. They've been around for about 8 or 9 years at this point, but they hadn't, actually, maybe even a little bit longer. But none of their games had really gotten much recognition. They'd all been lower budget, kind of these obscure RPGs, and I think Dishonored immediately put them on the map. Vigil Games,
I think that's probably the IP of the year, and I think probably an honorable mention should go to Gearbox for probably Borderlands 2, and I know, of course, they're working on the new Aliens, which looks phenomenal.
Yeah, next year could be big for Gearbox 2. We don't know when the Furious 4 is coming out. I don't really think it'll be out 2013, but we can hope. Aliens could be great, and they've got other stuff they're working on, and they're continuing to put out good, very different DLC for Borderlands 2, which is big. It doesn't feel like the game has been scrapped of content so that it can be put in later. These are very different things, like the pirate DLC and whatnot. And then, of course, Telltale for The Walking Dead. Kind of really after, the Sam and Max stuff, and They had some okay series, but The Walking Dead really kind of cemented their place.
Oh, yeah.
So next, this is another big category. These are all big categories. I'm going to stop saying that. But this is for Best Story. Now, I put 6 different games in this category because I loved all of these stories so much. So the first one is Far Cry 3. Then we've got Dishonored, Mass Effect 3, Assassin's Creed 3, Halo 4, and Spec Ops: The Line. And Dean, you actually told me the winner for this, even if you maybe didn't know it, so you can actually say this one. And
oh, you mean as far as Spec Ops?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would say the story on that so far, now I haven't finished all of Far Cry 3, but so far I would say with the games that I played this year, that Spec Ops: The Line had the most, just mind-wrenching story. It really almost does a number on your head. And it just sucks you in like no other game I played. Even though it looks kind of standard and average as a third-person shooter, it's amazing. It compensates so incredibly because of the story and the characters in it. And by the end, we have a total of 4 unique endings. So you actually control the story, and especially the end of it. So,
Right.
but again, I'm anxious to see all of them. And I certainly haven't played Halo 4 yet,
And I'll keep
as far as capturing the story there. But
and I'll keep telling you to. But and yeah, I think the other thing, because all of these games have great stories. Assassin's Creed 3 was a little long-winded. Mass Effect 3, I know people were disappointed with the ending, which isn't that bad. It really isn't that bad.
yeah, I heard it's not bad either.
Dishonored was a little bit short, and I think the with Spec Ops, I think the thing really for me that I think put that over the top was, like you said, as an outsider looking in. With the trailers they showed on TV, it looked like a pretty standard, maybe kind of rough and gritty military game. While Far Cry 3, they pushed this insanity story concept so much, and while Far Cry 3, it even surpassed my expectations for the story in that game. Spec Ops: The Line, I had such low story expectations for it, and it I think blew everyone away with how different it was.
Yeah, and even again, basing it on the basic concept of the Heart of Darkness
Right.
story and Apocalypse Now, as far as the kind of the essence and the feeling and spirit of it, really put it over the top for me. So again, I'm anxious to go back and kind of replay part of the ending to see if I can unlock more achievements, because you actually get achievements for each of those stories that you're able to unlock. I may have to go back and replay the last probably 4 chapters to get all those, but
Right.
it's really amazing.
So that's Spec Ops: The Line takes home Best Story for 2012. Now on to another kind of story-driven nomination, and that is Best Character. This is the award for the best single character of the year. So we have 5 different nominees, and for this one it's a little bit different because 2 are actually from the same game. The first is Dishonored, the character Samuel. He's the boatman. I really, really liked his character because there were some twists involving him that I didn't see coming, and I won't tell you. Obviously, you haven't played very much of it yet, but Dishonored, Samuel stood out to me more than the other characters. Assassin's Creed 3 had quite a few good characters. Connor, he wasn't quite as lively as Ezio, but he is not the nominee, actually. It's Charles Lee, who is, after you get pretty... I won't spoil too much for anyone who hasn't played it, but he is a very, very interesting character after the first 5 or 6 hours. I thought it was very, very well done, but there are a lot of different choices for that one. Halo 4, Cortana, finally giving her kind of this heart and this sense of purpose and this emotion that wasn't present in the earlier Halo games, made her an excellent choice. And the last 2 are both from Far Cry 3. Jason Brody, and I did not expect to have him on this, but the transformation from me absolutely hating his guts when I first started that game because he was just such a obnoxious bro, to by the end of it actually feeling some sympathy and eventually empathy for him, made him a great character. But the the character of the year for 2012 is Voss, also from Far Cry 3. Voss is incredibly well acted, for one thing, but he was such a fun guy to watch because you didn't know what he was going to do. He was very, very, very well written. He had interesting characters around him, but you wanted to see more than the main character what happened with Voss next, what was going on with him next, and it was very well done. One of the best characters in recent memory. There were some other nominees I didn't put on this. Didact from Halo 4 as well was a good one that I was surprised I really enjoyed as one of the first true villains in that series. But now we're going to move on. Best voice acting. This is a similar one. We didn't go by games for this one. We did go by games for this one. We did not go by characters. So the nominees, some of them are similar. It's The Walking Dead, Dishonored, Mass Effect 3, Halo 4, and the winner for this category is Far Cry 3 for an outstanding voice cast all around. Who is your favorite voice actor in this one?
I would have to say the Voss character so far. Again, it's the first time that I really almost was gripped with terror, almost right from the start, because of the overall portrayal. I mean, visually, and of course, even as far as the audible quality, and just some of the off-the-wall comments and little things. Run, Forrest, run! Right from the beginning. I mean, it's like almost like the manhunt thing. It's like it's on, and you're basically running for your life. So it kind of catapults you into this whole adventure. So I would probably have to agree that Voss probably takes the cake. I also actually liked the commander that was in who the hell is this guy? The actor, the guy that was in Spec Ops: The Line that played the guy that you're supposed to go after, which I think was the colonel.
Uh,
Who's played by the guy that did the Scarecrow and Mrs. King. I can't remember the famous actor's name. He also did a
Conrad would have
really
been.
good job.
Yeah, and that character was actually
Oh, I think it was
named.
I think it was Bruce Boxlinger.
Okay, and his character was actually, of course, named after the writer of The Heart of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Voss was intense. The voice acting in this game was great from everyone. Even there was a very different experience when you move from the South Island to the or from the North Island to the South Island. You'll notice there's much more joking around and just kind of I think funny dialogue and writing that they give to the grunts just running around. In the South part, it starts getting intense, and it you're not going to be laughing anymore when you're around that. You just get scared. So the voice
Cool.
acting in Far Cry 3 is phenomenal. These games all have great voice acting, but that one I think wins that category.
Mm-hmm.
So next one, best music or song. Now this is either a score for a game or an individual song for it, and some of them it was kind of different things. My reasoning for it. So Assassin's Creed 3 from Ubisoft Montreal is up first. The music in that game adds a very nice sense of tension. Halo 4, while not featuring much of the original Halo theme, still has some very, very tense moments that are enhanced by brilliant music. Medal of Honor Warfighter is next, specifically for the inclusion of the song Castle of Glass by Linkin Park, which fits the theme of this game perfectly, this more somber, kind of real soldier's tale. How well it was executed in the actual game is it doesn't really matter because the song works very well. Far Cry 3, about halfway in, the music they start using is extremely, extremely, extremely well done. Darksiders 2, for a very, very nice score made by the same guy who does the Assassin's Creed music. And last, Mass Effect 3, this one specifically for the ending song. During the ending that some people might not like, the song is amazing, and that one actually wins for best music or song of 2012.
Cool.
This is a piano score at the end of the game that you'll notice. It's very, very subtle, but it works perfectly with the kind of montage of events that they show. So Mass Effect 3, it's a great game, and the music kind of stood out to me longer than I thought it would. I'd find myself humming that end tune, not realizing what it's from, and then watching a video by chance and realizing, oh, that's where I got the song from. So, yes, Mass Effect 3, I think, is the best single song of the year. A similar category now, best sound design. Now, this one is a little bit different because all games kind of have different sound design, and it's hard to kind of compare them against each other, but most of the games we have here have at least some similar themes, not all of them, but the nominees for this category are Far Cry 3, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, which actually usually would not be in the nominees. Call of Duty games generally, as far as sound design against the competition, aren't all that great, but Call of Duty Black Ops 2, it's on the list for just really improving from Modern Warfare 3 in the sound design
The
department.
music is incredible. Of course, I'm an enormous fan of Trent Reznor that
Yeah.
actually wrote the score
Yeah.
for it, as well as a Social Network and, of course, Nine Inch Nails. But yeah, I also was very impressed with Black Ops 2. There was some kind of eerie music also in Spec Ops: The Line, and of course, the music in Far Cry, from what I've heard so far, is fantastic. So, it's hard on sound design. Now, the gun sounds were also very good I thought, on Warfighter, Medal of Honor, and also in Spec Ops: The Line, as far as authentic gun sounds of real M4s and
Mm-hmm.
the saw and a lot of my favorite guns. But again, it's a hard one to pick on that one.
Yeah.
Sound design.
So the other three nominees for this category are Darksiders 2, again for some very interesting combat effects, actually, this one, and ambient noise. Dishonored for, I thought, brilliant dynamic sound design. And our winner in this category, it was the only one this year to make my jaw drop in two different sections, we'll get to that later, is Halo 4. Halo 4 it's a new team with 343 developing this game, and in terms of sound design, it's not something that Halo's necessarily been known for as much as they have for their music and pushing the boundaries of the system. But the sound design in Halo 4, from the weapons to the enemies, is amazing. I was shocked. There's some space segments pretty early on where there's firing, and it sounds like it doesn't sound cheap. It sounds like you're actually firing the gun, muffled like you were in space. So that's the first of a few categories Halo 4 wins. But the next we're moving on to is a related category from kind of the other side of the of the see here side of things, and that's the best visuals and art direction. Now, I want to clear something up. This is not just sharpest graphics, this category. I put some games on this that just did a really good job of giving a new art style or a new look to a game. So our first two nominees fit into that category. Dishonored. Now, Dishonored, some textures in this game look like they were painted on or drawn with crayon, but the overall look of the game has this kind of watercolor effect, and it is so it's so beautiful, even if it's not the sharpest thing to look at, but to just this whole kind of universe that they've created.
It captures a real particular atmosphere that you haven't seen in a game for a long time, except for perhaps BioShock.
Yeah.
And an interesting kind of a immersive game like that. Yeah, I would have to agree. It was very, very well done. Not highly detailed graphics, but the art style was exceptional.
Right. The next one is Journey, a PS3 downloadable exclusive for offering something very, very unique with this kind of barren landscape, but at the same time just drawing you in with the simple details. Again, not very sharp because, it's a downloadable game. It's all cartoony kind of, but brilliant. Now, Mass Effect 3, this one wins kind of a mix of the two. The art direction, they carried it over from previous Mass Effect experiences, but this game is beautiful. Every texture looks great. Faces, they have the emotion that you'd expect. And it might not be the most surprising game because it really is an improvement over Mass Effect 2 and, by that extension, the first game, but it deserves to be on the list. Far Cry 3. Now, this one was a little bit tricky for me. I put it on the list, and it was going to be on the list, but the reason why this game actually will not win in Best Visuals is because there were some issues I encountered with some pop-in and stuff like that. But overall,
screen tearing, galore and pop-in.
Yeah, I noticed screen tearing too. It wasn't bad so much that I didn't want to play anymore. But the faces and stuff look great. The other thing was, I don't know if you noticed, shadows around people. I don't know what it was, but they look kind of strange.
It's a heavy halo effect. You and I had discussed this as far as Medal of Honor Warfighter.
Right.
They turned it up all the way to 10 on this one. It's a way of overcompensating, and it creates depth to make things in the foreground pop a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So they put a real heavy shadowing around every chair, every person, and it creates a sense of depth, almost a 3D appearance. So it's an old graphic design trick, but I'm seeing it incorporated in a lot more games now.
I think they could have toned it down a little bit, but in the positives, heavy, as this is, I think, my number 2 pick for visuals and art direction this year, some of the positives, like I said, the faces look great. They fixed a lot of the things that another game by the same studio, Assassin's Creed 3, did wrong. That's why it's not on the list. But water effects are so, so, so beautiful. Fire is also brilliant. Foliage overall is very good looking, and
it's very vibrant.
Yes, and some kind of textual events look very good. But our winner, like the last category actually, and because this one it made my jaw drop within the first 5 seconds, is Halo 4. This game pushes the boundaries of what the Xbox 360 can do. I actually thought I was, and I'm not kidding, I thought I was watching a live action segment when the game started, when I was watching an animated Dr. Halsey talk. It was so good looking. The game also is the first Halo game to really change the art direction. With the Promethean technology and the Forerunner stuff, even though, it still looks like Halo, they changed a lot of stuff on this new planet Requiem to really, really make it look great and make it look fresh. So Halo 4 wins Best Visuals. This game, if there's any category I'd say wins by a country mile over the rest, I'd say it's Halo 4. The rest are, for the most part, very, very close. So now we move on to Best New Franchise or Game. Now, this year, maybe like no other, we have encountered a barrage of sequels, some of them numbering in the 6s, like we saw with Resident Evil. But we have a few games. These are all brand new. One of them's not a new franchise because it's from an existing IP, but they're all new games that try something very, very different. The first one is a PlayStation Vita game, and that is Gravity Rush. I reviewed this back when I was at CGR. I think I reviewed it in June, because it came out in June. I think I reviewed it a little bit after it came out. This game is, it has some issues, but not only does it create a really cool setting, kind of, I don't know, it makes me think of the Stray Cats for some reason. I'm not sure why. It's very different from most other Japanese games, but it creates a really nice combat system. It uses the Vita in a very unique way that this game couldn't be on any other system. and it features some very unique gameplay mechanics. Journey is the second one. Now, I doubt very heavily, out of all of them, I doubt the most that Journey will be getting a sequel, because it's kind of one of those one-off games. I don't know what they do differently with a sequel. I imagine that game company, and that's actually the name of it, that game company, is going to be moving on to something different to show how they can push the boundaries of creativity in a different way, because that's kind of what they're known for now. Of course, Telltale's The Walking Dead really, really brought these adventure games to the mainstream. I know at the VGAs, this was actually the winner of their game of the
Oh
year.
yes, in fact, I just saw it at over at GameStop. You can get it for about $30. You can get all of them, which
Yeah,
I'm going to probably pick up this week.
yeah, it's cool. Actually, if you guys are wondering right now, I believe on both iPhone and Xbox 360, you can go and download the first chapter of The Walking Dead for
Free.
free. Yes,
Hmm.
I was playing around with it on the iPhone. I don't really recommend you do that. It looks brilliant. I mean, there's no issues in that department, but the screen isn't very good for controlling an adventure game like that. So I'd advise to play on a different platform. But very, very different game, completely story driven. And last, and our winner in this category is Dishonored from Arcane Studios, published by Bethesda. This game, I think more than any other game, I was like, but I want to play more. Now, part of that, of course, was because the game wasn't all that long, and you'll notice this when you get further into it, Dean. But
Hmm.
they created this great, great universe, and there's pretty good closure at the end of the game. But I believe there's definitely room for a sequel. And Pete Hines, the VP of
In
Public Relations,
DLC.
yeah, oh yeah, and they already had a little bit of that with the Dunwall City Trials stuff. But I'd really like to see a sequel to this, and Pete Hines, the VP of Public Relations at Bethesda, has said, we have a franchise on our hands, so it looks like we're going to be getting one. I believe The Walking Dead's probably not done too, because I think they're releasing another season of that. This is just season one, and I think Gravity Rush probably will get a sequel. So the next category, moving on to, is best multiplayer. Now, kind of an inherent part of multiplayer is its community, its support, its base. So a lot of these are from either more popular games or from more popular genres. So first, starting off with kind of a nominee, I didn't really expect anything out of this game's multiplayer mode, and that's Kid Icarus Uprising on the 3DS. Now, Kid Icarus is an old franchise, but we haven't seen a game in 20 years. Before we had the original Kid Icarus on the NES. I believe that came out in 1988. And then, in, I believe, 91 on the Game Boy, Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters. But this was on the 3DS, completely different style of game, same characters, but it was a third-person shooter with flying mechanics. The controls are very strange, but the multiplayer in it is really, really fun. Works perfectly. I didn't encounter any lag or problems like that, and it's a great. It's not like a huge time sink, but it's something you'll want to keep playing to get the best weapons to beat up on people you've never met before or your friends. Now, our next nominee for co-op, specifically for co-op, is Borderlands 2. This game was kind of marketed really strongly for co-op, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why it's co-op. I think is definitely the best co-op game released this year. They marketed it extremely strongly, and it delivered on promises. Now, Borderlands 2 isn't reinventing the wheel. I think, like some people saw, maybe a new genre kind of being created with the first Borderlands, this first-person shooter RPG hybrid, but it enhanced everything. Next nominee, Ghost Recon Future Soldier. The multiplayer in this game, while it has pretty spotty servers, but the game is so fun and so different, I think, from other games on the market, even with a kind of generic name like Future Soldier, that the multiplayer should really be examined closely. It's extremely, extremely fun. I played a ton of it. There's also a Ghost Recon Network app that you can get on your iPhone. I don't know if I think it's on Android devices as well. And you can look at stuff online too, which helps you out learning about your game. And you can actually build some weapons on there and then implement them into the game. It's a very, very cool multiplayer experience that doesn't focus on kills. It focuses on teamwork and on completing objectives. Of course, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, the multiplayer in this game is where it really shined. While I felt the campaign was maybe a little bit of a letdown because although they tried a lot of new things, not all of them worked as well as I think they'd hoped they would. The multiplayer, pretty much everything they tried, these new ideas, worked really, really well. The Pick 10 system is very, very Very well done. It really gives that sense of freedom in choosing how you play that I think Call of Duty's been known for, not necessarily in scope or in scale, but in customization. And this kicks that up to the next level.
Yeah, it really does. And frankly, every time I put on my Xbox 360, I see more of my friends, or that's all they play, or as far as the Black Ops 2,
Hmm.
just over and over. I mean, it's probably hands down, it's probably 2/3 of what I see are all my friends playing because I'll look and kind of see what they're up to. And I just see Black Ops 2, Black right across the board sometimes. So
Hmm.
it sure gets a lot of action from what I've seen.
And of course, it has its problems with kids playing on, and with a huge fan base of
That's why I
otherwise,
don't play
yeah,
it.
otherwise non-gamers or whatnot. But even though I sometimes think, can't you play something else when I see someone playing that game over and over and over again, it is a very high quality, and that's not Treyarch's fault. They did a very good job on that. But and this game gets a lot of awards, I'm telling you, because it is freaking amazing. Halo 4 wins best multiplayer.
You get your $60 worth with Black Ops 2.
You do. Now, Halo 4 wins Best Multiplayer for a couple of reasons. First, the inclusion of Spartan Ops, this episodic mode that's really, really interesting. But the competitive multiplayer in Halo 4 is so well balanced, so well designed, and so addicting. That is why it wins Best Multiplayer. Out of all of the games on this list and some other ones, there are none that I want to play over and over again like Halo 4. I adore this game. The hit detection is phenomenal. The weapons feel great, and it's a ton of fun to play with people, even people you don't know, your friends, whatever. This is a fantastic multiplayer game. Now, in the past, I would always say either Halo 1 or Halo 2 were my favorite multiplayer. Halo 2 because the game, it really introduced console players to Xbox Live, and Halo 1 because of all the LAN party goodness and some of the classic maps. But I can say, without a doubt, Halo 4 is now the best multiplayer game in the Halo series. It's a tremendous game. If you own an Xbox, this is the reason why you get an Xbox. It's for this game. So we're moving on to a category Dean is very, very familiar with, and that's racing.
Mm-hmm.
So we have these racing games that are nominated: F1 2012.
Mm-hmm. Which I haven't played yet, but it actually looks good. And Mark Bustler of Classic Gamer played last year's and loved it, and he likes this year's even more. So I'm inclined to agree with him that it probably is, from what I've seen. I've watched some playthroughs of it. It looks exceptional. Great graphics, extremely realistic as far as car setups and all that. It's just not my bag as far as racing games, but it certainly looks good.
Mm-hmm. Next up is Dirt Showdown.
Which I passed on because I think what Dirt does best is Dirt. When they did the rally racing, that's what they're famous for. And I have the same consensus from many of my driving friends that actually like Dirt 2 better than Dirt 3.
Mm-hmm.
The Gymkhana stuff and a lot of the other extreme sports stuff that they try to squeeze into it, it's almost a cartoon version of Dirt. Mm-hmm. So it looks good. It looks like it might be fun. It's kind of something you play for a weekend. You probably put it away and not pull it off the shelf again, but.
Mm-hmm. Now, as someone who's not usually a racing game fan, it's just not what I'm into. The game that I watched some kind of Let's Plays on from some guys, some of the creatures that interested me the most, and I think it's because of the settings and just some of the design choices that I think looks really fun, was Need for Speed Most Wanted.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome. Yeah, it's a great game. It was in fact, it was one of my top 10 games of the year that I picked.
Yep. And of course, Dean, you can kind of finish this off with your racing game of the year. It's also the What We Saw racing game of the year,
which is Forza Horizon. It's kind of a hybrid version of Forza 4 mixed with all these other wonderful, a lot of other racing game developers that came together and all left their mark on this game. You can really see the influence of the people from Codemasters and Bizarre Creations and a lot of other studios. So it's a fantastic mixture. It's really kind of a nice, very pleasant open world. And it gives you, like I said in my own review, it gives you really a great feeling of being on the open road, mm-hmm. which I really like, without cops and without timers and constant leaderboard things that are always in your face. You can kind of play it any way you want. You just go out, just go driving. You can take on challenges on the road as you come across them. As you come up behind someone, if you like the car and want to race it and see what he has under the hood, you can do it. Or you can actually go to these special events that they have all over the map. So it's a fantastic game. For anyone looking for an exceptional game, it's my favorite racing game of all time. And like I said, I think that the Need for Speed Most Wanted would be a close second. because it is so polished. It's so
Mm-hmm.
well done, exceptional sound design and visual quality. And as far as their very smooth frame rate, it would have a couple stutters here and there, but other than that, it wasn't bad. I had a 38-minute police chase
Yeah.
that went, it seemed like it was 2.5 hours. Actually, we timed it. It was 38 minutes, and it's insane. It's almost impossible to get away. In fact, I got 4 achievements for outrunning the cops after 38 minutes.
So yeah, Forza Horizon, it looks like a great one, and of course, although the Xbox 360 doesn't get as many big name exclusives as the PlayStation 3 does, there are 2 genres now, I think. If you are a console player and you're looking to play games on, and that's shooters and racing games, you should probably buy an
4,
Xbox.
yeah, Halo 4 and Forza 4 and Forza Horizon,
And of
would
course,
be
the
the
Gears
reason
series.
to get an Xbox.
Yeah, and the Gears series. And I
And
think
the Gears, yes.
And this is kind of a surprise because before Gran Turismo was the big thing and that was only on PlayStation, but now it looks like Forza has overtaken it as the better racing game.
Yes.
So now we're moving on to, this is maybe the hardest one to list off because, and not because the choices were very, difficult, they kind of were, but because none of the games in this really deserve to get an award except that they're in this genre this particular year, and that's sports games. So we've got 4 choices. All of them have problems, some of them more serious than others. But the choices for this year are NHL 13 by EA, NBA 2K13 by Take-Two and 2K Games, 2K Sports, MLB 12 The Show, which is a Sony San Diego release. I actually have it on the Vita, and Madden 2013. And Madden 2013 wins only because EA finally tried to do something different with this new physics system, which did not make it onto the Wii U release where it should have, where it would have been awesome with controlling or with picking plays on the gamepad. But Madden 2013 tries something different and is a big step above last year's installment, which the other 3 nominees here cannot say. MLB 11, I've seen a lot of people say is the best baseball game ever made. I've seen the same thing said for NBA 2K12.
Mm-hmm.
But and NHL 13, I've seen a lot of people have problems with it. But Madden 2013 is a big step above the last one.
Yes. As far as looks, at least I haven't played either one of them, but the graphics are pretty much amazing from what I've seen. I mean, it looks like you're actually in a football game.
Mm-hmm. So now we're moving on to Shooter of the Year, a big category. This is where a lot of the big bucks in development and in purchasing goes into. So we have 5 nominees for this one. Borderlands 2, which is an incredibly fun game that I haven't been able to play much of it, but I got a chance to play some. Far Cry 3, Halo 4, Ghost Recon Future Soldier, which is the earliest release of the year, and Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And the winner by just a hair is Halo 4. Just a tiny hair, but Halo 4 it's one of my favorite games ever. It's a game that I'm going to remember for a very long time, and it showed how good Frank O'Connor and the guys at 343 are. So we're going to move on now, but Halo 4 is the Shooter of the Year. Now, Action Adventure of the Year. This is a kind of weird category because there were a lot of hybrid games this year, but I found 5 that I think deserve to be given an award for something, or to be at least nominated for an award. And those are Kid Icarus Uprising on the 3DS, which was developed by Project Sora and published by Nintendo. Hitman Absolution, which was developed by IO Interactive and published by Square Enix.
Great game, by the way. Yeah, Hitman is awesome.
Assassin's Creed 3, developed by Ubisoft Montreal and published by Ubisoft. Darksiders 2, developed by Vigil Games and published by THQ. And I want to talk about this one for a little while. We can maybe pour a drink out or something, because THQ, they filed for bankruptcy, and it looks like some of their assets, if not all of them, are going to get sold off to different companies. There's been talks of Ubisoft perhaps buying the rights to these, the source code and the IPs. This may be the only way we get a Darksiders 3. Darksiders 2 is a phenomenal game. It is so much fun, and if you have not bought it, I really encourage you to. But it did not win Action Adventure Game of the Year. That goes to Dishonored as well. Dishonored is so well made. Every level in this game, the level design is the best of the year by far. It's so well done. The combat is smooth. It works perfectly well as either a stealth game, a pure stealth game, complete pure stealth game, or as a murder everyone action game, which is very hard to do. and it created this brilliant world. So yes, Dishonored from Arcane is our action adventure game of the year.
Wow, I thought it would have been Far Cry 3, but from what I've seen from Dishonored, again, as far as the level design, it's hard to argue with success and how
Well,
good the game looks from what I've seen and playing the opening part of it. But
well, in terms of genre, I only put Far Cry in one category. That's why it's not up there.
oh, I see.
Okay. So next up, this is our second to last award, everyone. One that isn't as it's not as stocked this year, but it got some good games. And that's RPG of the year. So we have 4 nominees for this: Torchlight 2, which out Diablo in 2012 to be, I think, the better kind of hack and slash dungeon crawler game. The Last Story, which is one of the Wii's swan songs, Operation Rainfall, of course, helped get that over here, as well as Xenoblade Chronicles, which many JRPG fans, I'm not really one of them, but they consider it to be one of the best JRPGs they've ever played, and Mass Effect 3. I put this under RPG because I feel it is more in common with RPGs than it does with shooters or action adventure games, even though it does play like one of those because of some of its story elements and whatnot. And it also wins RPG of the year for creating.
Yeah, it's probably rightly so. Yeah, it's probably the finest RPG made is Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 overall. For something that's received by as far as most gamers can easily get right into it and enjoy it.
And that's a good point. I'm not traditionally a Western RPG guy. I wasn't traditionally a Western RPG guy, I should say. But I played Mass Effect 2, and even though Dragon Age 2 was disappointing, Mass Effect 2 was incredible, and it got me excited for Mass Effect 3. The 2 Bs, of course, of Western publishing are the big names now with Western RPGs, and that's, of course, Bethesda and BioWare. And, of course, the Elder Scrolls game, Skyrim, is a phenomenal game. It's a generation-defying experience, I'd say. But that came out in 2011, even though there has been a ton of DLC and post-release support for it. So Mass Effect 3 is our RPG of the year.
Good.
Now we move on to the main one. I had to pick the games I thought were overall the highest quality. Either tried, if your game tries new things, that's great. We got a category for that. But to be nominated for Game of the Year, this is a game that you have to sit back afterwards and think, wow, that was amazing. And we have 5 nominees that fit that description to a T. Those are our RPG of the Year, Mass Effect 3, Borderlands 2, our action-adventure game of the year, Dishonored from Arcane, and a game that's won a few awards for Best Voice Acting and for Best Character, Far Cry 3, and Halo 4, which has won Shooter of the Year so far, Best Multiplayer, Best Visuals and Art Direction, and also won Best Sound Design. And like shooters, and I'll number these actually, the Game of the Year is Halo 4 by, again, just a slight hair over Far Cry 3. If I had to actually number these 5 to 1, it would be Mass Effect 3, then Borderlands, then Dishonored, then Far Cry 3, and then Halo 4. These are all tremendous games, which you should definitely play. Most of these I'd recommend to anyone to at least give a try, and they are all extremely, extremely polished, extremely worthwhile experiences. But Halo 4, it stuck with me. While Far Cry 3 also stuck with me. Those were the 2 games that I think stuck with me the most. Halo 4, there was something about it. I just completely fell in love with it. So that is the What We Saw Game of the Year for Halo 4 for 2012. So let us know what your favorite games were. Was there a category we should have included that we didn't? Was there a game that didn't get an award? Was there something you thought was snubbed? Let us know in the comments what you thought. This is going to be actually going up on the very last day of the year. So we'll see you in 2013. My name is Gabe Gerwin. I'm joined by Dean Thompson.
Enjoy your games, guys.